On paper, Bakugo is easily the best student. Shigi and Deku, with all their differences, are complete parallels and have the same pivotal moments during their story. This, as well as a few other things that you didn't understand in this show, coming right up. Hello comrade, my name is Mahis. Come, get yourself a beverage and sit down with me, we got heroes to look into. Say what you want about Ka-chan, but he's a very competent student and does everything to the best of his abilities. Sure, he may not excel in every single subject, like Yaomomo is undoubtedly more knowledgeable and Uraraka can throw a ball further. However, yelling and attitude aside, he has the highest average of stats out of both classes and maybe the entire school. First of all, he's disciplined. He doesn't skip lessons willingly, has extreme prejudice against germs, and even goes to bed earlier than everybody else to make sure he has that essential beauty sleep. As for academics, he was good enough to get into UA while acing the entrance exam, got third best results on the midterm all by himself, and absolutely destroyed the competition in the A vs B battle. Here's where it gets a bit debatable though. He botched the hero license exam. That is indeed a major L, but you have to remember, they revamped the entire thing to make sure that only the most qualified candidates pass, which translates into roughly 10 times less people than in the years before. Let's be honest, he hasn't reached that hero-like persona yet, and it's understandable, because that's the whole point of going to this institution. What King Explosion Murder has over most other students is the lack of anything that holds him back. Look at Shoro, Deku and many others. They have an internal or sometimes external issue that they have to deal with. He, on the other hand, has a clear goal that he is working towards and there is nothing that can stop him. Villains tried, only to fail miserably. Media use him to attack UA's reputation. Hell, most students hate him for his behavior. None of that matters. For example, when Ka-chan said that he was going to win, it was not an insult, not a show-off, he meant it. There's hardly anyone who is more determined to get better, and we can clearly see it. Whether it's playing drums or cutting veggies, he will go plus ultra and prove that he is in fact the best. While we're on the topic of school, have you realized how much these two missed in just a few days of absence? Surely this is not a big deal. We Westerners can skip a bunch of classes and catch up with little to no trouble. Well, school is a bit different over there, and this situation is used as an exaggerated example to reinforce their values. You see, attendance is the most important aspect of Japanese education and many other parts of their life for a very simple reason. It's imperative to follow the rules and do what's expected of you. That's why you see so much emphasis on it in every school anime. A weird example is Onigawara from Mob Psycho. This dude is a stereotypical delinquent who doesn't give a fuck about much else other than himself, and still, he was upset for breaking his 2-year-long perfect attendance record. From their perspective, even grades are secondary, because if you perform poorly, at least by coming every day, it shows that you're doing your best and want to improve. Contrary to that, if you score high but don't come to school, they'll think you're arrogant and consider yourself above everyone else. Peer pressure is strong with these ones, which is arguably the main driving force for most students, as you technically can't fail the school program and will graduate. The catch is the various entrance exams to weed out the dummies and interviews where you can be asked to provide the attendance record for your studying or employment opportunities and denied if you skipped one too many days. Back to My Hero Aka. It is not a secret that a traitor is hiding somewhere in UA, however, there is another shameless liar whose words blatantly contradict what we've seen prior. Listen to this.
I've never tried it before, but I think it's probably impossible to brainwash many people at once. My focus would be too splintered.
And before you start shitting on the dub, fuck you, it's pretty good. Shinso specifically says in both anime and manga that he hasn't tried using his quirk on multiple people. Not that it 100% wouldn't work, but he thinks it wouldn't. What's this then? Unless it's Monoma and Johnny's other sibling helping him out, there's no way what he said is true. Okay, sure, this is just one little fragment from years ago and I must be nitpicking too much. Except, this was not the only time several people were brainwashed simultaneously. One of the major developments during the sports festival was Tails and Aimbot voluntarily dropping out of finals because they felt like they didn't deserve to be there on account of not remembering most of the cavalry battle. which means Shinso again took control of at least 2 guys and was perfectly conscious to issue orders to the point of advancing in the competition, which was actually quite an achievement considering his opponent. Now, what are we supposed to make of that? Like, Toya's hair was a slip-up by the animation team, which was later addressed by the author. But this is canon absolutely misfiring, and you're probably thinking I'll explain it as I usually do, but I got nothing. So feel free to share your version, because this is a strange oversight to say the least. What's not strange is Lemillion's decision to let Overhaul go during their first encounter. I cannot believe the amount of people who are freaking out about this, as it was the most rational decision for several reasons. First and foremost, they were already going after his Yakuza family for being the prime suspect in the substance distribution case, which means that, hopefully, Heroes will deal with them in the foreseeable future and we can't throw the whole thing out the window for a slim chance of immediate success. Why slim? Because, as much as Togeda counters Kai, they didn't know his quirk, so Midoriya could have been tricked and disintegrated on the spot. Moreover, even the dumbest villain bosses know to have some disposable henchmen around just in case. So there is no telling if Mimic or Chrono was following him, as they seem to be pretty good at sneaking. Secondly, information. Just by bumping into each other, our dudes learned that he has a daughter who is all afraid and messed up, so something's fishy going on. Plus, we've confirmed that they're in the area and not hiding. That's a fuck ton of valuable intel that was immediately put to good use and gave them the green light to start the entire operation. Thirdly, collateral damage. Remember how Shigi dared Izuku to try to catch him in the mall? Yeah, knowing what happened later, a couple dozen civilians doesn't seem too bad. But that's not very heroic, and so on. Here, the same thing. Unlike the raid that was designed to involve as few bystanders as possible, there are too many of them around, and we can't guarantee that he will go down without casualties. Also, I know that meddling where you don't have to is the essence of being a hero, but legally speaking, do they have a leg to stand on if this happened in the real world? I don't think the police would be able to do anything about a parent with a distressed, bandaged child in a dark alley. Maybe ask for some documents, but they can be fabricated. In any case, leaving them alone for the time being was a good call that eventually allowed them to succeed. Lastly, I'd like to talk about the parallels between the protagonist and antagonist of the show, because their journey is remarkably similar. From the very beginning, both of them wanted to become a hero and both had their dreams crushed. However, a mentor came into their lives saying, "I am here to help you." Obviously, it happened at different times under different circumstances, but ultimately, these two prodigies meet each other on a field trip from their respective schools, where Deku was supposed to learn how to deal with a disaster, and Tomura was learning how to cause one. Then, UA students went on a work study with proper heroes, while Facepalm teamed up with a proper villain, where both parties started to explore what it means to represent their side. It turns out, you need charisma to inspire people and earn their trust. This is not an easy thought to process, so some time off is required. Guess what? They meet again, sit down, and have a heart-to-heart. All jokes aside, I absolutely love this entire sequence and wish more stories had a similar interaction. After that, yet another field trip where they learn how to better utilize their resources. Class 1AB work on their quirks, while bad guys work on their strategy, which involves them taking a calculated risk and failing miserably because Shigi sucks at math. Well, what can you do? Mentors have to take matters into their own hands, both students have to say goodbye to their previous way of life and move on. Some time passes and it's time to get a bit more freedom. Heroes prove themselves to a committee, while villains get an approval from their supporter, which allows all of them to better themselves by taking on greater challenges. In the process though, Shigi and Deku acquire some new powers that require strengthening their body. Good thing Midoriya has been doing that for a while, but his itchy ass needs it quickly, so he goes for an express option. This over here is the big difference between the two. Tomura is going through much more extreme events, having the worst quirk manifestation, losing his sensei completely, shortcutting through bioengineering. It's like his development is a series of sharp turns, while Deku's progression is a bit more smooth. I understand this type of storytelling and change of pace isn't for everyone. My Hero Aka became much darker, mature, which makes total sense given the stakes that we've learned as early as Season 2, and I can't wait to see where we go from here. It was I. Mahis recovering from celebrations, finally setting up a Discord server and Patreon for those who are willing. Have a great this entire year. Until next time, cheers.